I'd been running the same Saturday morning loop in Forest Park for almost 3 years before I noticed him. 6-mile route, 7:30 a.m. start, ending bench at the back turnaround where I would stop for water and listen to the trees. 3 Saturdays in a row, he was on that bench when I came around the back curve. Coffee cup, hands wrapped around it, no running clothes, no dog, no book, just sitting. I'm Olivia, 31, freelance photographer in Portland. Forest Park is the largest forested urban park in the United States, 5,000-some acres on the west side of the city. I'd had the same Saturday loop for almost 3 years. I knew the regulars by face. 2 older men who walked the trail counterclockwise, a woman with a tan boxer who took the steeper connector, a trail runner couple I'd nodded at since the year before. I knew them by routine. I'd grab a Subway breakfast sandwich and an iced coffee at the Fred Meyer Plaza down the road after the run. Same order every week. Egg white, hash brown, no cheese. The man on the bench was not a regular. The first Saturday I saw him, I had not registered him. Forest Park gets non-regulars constantly. Visitors, day hikers, people taking a coffee to a quiet spot before brunch. He was sitting on the bench at the back turnaround, which is a quiet point on the loop where the trail bends and the trees pull in. I had clocked him as a man enjoying his coffee. Second Saturday, same bench, same coffee cup, same hands wrapped around it the same way. I noticed because I had pulled out my phone to take a photo. The morning light was hitting a moss-covered Douglas fir behind the bench. His head turned toward me when my phone came out of the vest pocket. The turn was quick. He looked back at his coffee. I took the photo of the tree. I drank some water. I kept running. Third Saturday, same bench again. Honestly, this time I clocked the pattern. 3 weeks in a row at the same bench in the same posture. He did not have running clothes. He did not have a backpack. The bench is a 45-minute walk from the nearest parking lot if you take a continuous route. Not impossible, but it would mean walking to that specific bench with a coffee cup and sitting alone before sunrise on 3 consecutive Saturdays. The thing is, I had photographed enough early morning portraiture to know the posture of somebody waiting versus somebody resting. His shoulders were canted toward the trail bend, not toward the trees. I did not stop at the bench that Saturday. I drank my water while still running. That night, I did something I had not done before. I pulled the 2 photos I had taken on the second Saturday onto my laptop and zoomed in past the moss-covered fir I had been framing. In the soft focus background, on the bench, the pale shape of him, head already canted a few degrees toward the curve I would come around. I had not seen it through the viewfinder. The lens had recorded what my eye had skipped. I sat with the cursor on his blurred face for a long time. I told myself a stranger's resting posture means nothing. I did not believe myself, and I did not sleep well that week. The 4th Saturday was different. He was at a different bench, the 1/2 a mile earlier on the loop, where I always paused for 30 seconds to drink water. Quietest point on the route. Trees close on both sides. Cell signal goes sparse there for about 100 yards. He was sitting on that bench when I came around the curve. Same coffee cup. He looked up when he heard me coming. I did not stop. I ran straight through. I did not look at him as I passed. I felt his head turn to track me. The 5th Saturday, the bench at the back turnaround was empty when I came around the back curve. I paused. I drank water. As I was screwing the cap back on, I looked up the trail, in the direction I had not yet come from. He was standing 30 feet up the trail, in the wooded section, watching the bench. He had not been there when I came around the curve. He had stepped out from behind the trees as I was drinking. He was watching the bench. I did not finish my water. I did not turn my back to him. I started walking backwards down the trail in the direction I had come from. He did not move. After 10 paces of backwards walking, I turned and ran. I ran all the way back to the trailhead, skipping the rest of the loop. I did not go to my car. I went straight to the Forest Park Ranger Station at the Lower Maclay trailhead. I told the ranger what I had seen. She took the description. She walked to the park's camera console and pulled the morning's feed for the trail intersection points along my route. She found him on camera near the quiet bench, 10 minutes before I would have reached it. Then she pulled archive. The same man was on Park's cameras at trail intersection points along my Saturday loop on 14 consecutive Saturdays, going back almost 4 months. Every Saturday at the times that corresponded to my loop. Every camera that mattered. The 4 months he had been on camera, I had only seen him on 5 Saturdays. The other 9 he had been in positions I would not have had visibility on. Portland PD took the report. They cross-referenced his vehicle, which had been parked at the lower McClay lot every one of those 14 Saturdays. The DMV match came back to a man in Beaverton, prior park system bar from a different jurisdiction, a misdemeanor for loitering with intent in conservation areas, one that had bumped to a stalking pattern indicator when the park's camera archive came in. He was arrested 2 days later at his home. He had a notebook in his car with my photo from the front page of my photography portfolio website, printed out and folded into the back cover. He was charged with stalking and breach of peace and park system trespass. He pleaded 11 months county jail plus 5 years probation. He was barred from all Portland City parks for the duration of the probation and for 10 years after. The detective who handled the booking told me one more thing during the second interview. The notebook in the suspect's car had also contained 2 other women's photographs taped to its inside pages. Both were Forest Park regulars at different routes and different times. Both had been on Park's cameras with similar pattern density, one for almost 6 months on Tuesday and Thursday early mornings, one for almost 3 months on Sunday evenings. Neither of those women had reported anything. Neither knew. The detective said, with my consent, the park system would reach out to them through a sealed letter from the prosecutor's office, offering safety counseling. He said the 2 women would be notified that a relevant individual was under arrest and would be barred from city parks. He said he could not tell them more without compromising either case. I said yes. I asked, before I left the interview, whether either woman was a regular runner I might have seen on the trails. The detective said carefully that he could not say. I run with a buddy now. Different loop, different days. I carry a loud whistle device on my vest and a small canister of bear spray in the other pocket. I lost the quiet Saturday morning solo ritual I had built up for 3 years. I do not photograph in the park anymore, even on weekday mornings with a buddy. The work I had been doing on a Forest Park calendar series for a local outdoor brand, 14 months of accumulated material, 1,000, some frames archived on a backup drive, sits unedited. In a folder I have not opened since the trial. My agent took me off the outdoors calendar rotation at my request. I work weddings and corporate headshots now. What I haven't been able to put down is that I had only seen him 3 Saturdays before I started clocking the pattern. He had been watching my trail intersection 14 Saturdays. My route had become a fixed timetable he could plan around. He had not been watching me. He had been watching the trail, knowing that I would come around it.
So I was finishing the Brewer Fountain Loop at 6:15 on a Tuesday morning. My golden retriever stopped dead, lowered her ears, pulled toward a hedge instead of past it. Bagel doesn't pull toward hedges for squirrels. She pulls past them. Boston Common opens 24/7, but my route was always the same. Brewer Fountain around the Frog Pond corner, up to the Park Street T-stop side and back. 3 dogs in rotation, roughly 50 minutes per dog. Bagel was my third of that Tuesday morning, a 4-year-old golden retriever. I'd been walking weekly for a year. I'd been walking dogs for 16 years, first my own, then friends, then app-based clients via the WAG app for almost a decade. 47 now. I'd swing by the Dunkin' on Tremont before I started my rotation, most mornings. Large, hot, 2 sugars. In a 24-ounce cup. One I'd nurse through the first 2 dogs and finish before the third. The Patriots schedule magnet on my fridge is what most clients see when I send a photo of their dog post-walk. I know dogs. I know how they react. I know what Bagel pulls on when she pulls. Squirrels mostly. Occasionally a rat near the frog pond. Sometimes a pigeon scrap. The pull at the Frog Pond corner that morning was different. Bagel did not pull toward the corner. She pulled toward the hedge along the path, lowered her ears, and stopped. Her tail went neutral. Bagel is a happy dog. Her tail does not go neutral for squirrels. I looked at the hedge. There was a man crouching behind it. I should say first that I am not a man who startles easily on the common. I have walked these paths in the dark 1,000 times. I know which homeless folks sleep at which corners. I know the morning sweepers and the night security and the joggers. The man behind the hedge was not someone I recognized. He was mid-30s, hooded sweatshirt. He was crouching low enough that I had not seen him from 20 paces back. He was tucked behind the hedge in a deliberate way. I have spent 16 years learning to read a space half a second, slower than the dog does, and I had learned to trust the lag. Bagel had not barked. She had done the thing that scares me more than a bark. She had gone quiet, dropped her weight, and tried to slide her body sideways between me and the hedge. In a full year of Tuesday mornings, she had never once positioned herself in front of me. A barking dog has found something it wants to chase. A silent dog that blocks you has found something it wants you to back away from. I started reading the exits. He stood up slowly. He did not say anything. His right hand was tucked into the front pocket of the sweatshirt. He was watching me. I tightened the leash on Bagel and started backing slowly along the path the way I had come. I kept Bagel on my left. The path runs adjacent to a corporate building whose front entrance is about 100 feet behind me. I knew the security guard at that entrance because I had said good morning to him for 4 years on this rotation. His name was Anthony. The man pulled his right hand out of the pocket. He was holding a piece of rebar, maybe 9 inches, iron, rust-stained at one end. He stepped onto the path. I made a decision in the space of one breath. I let Bagel's leash extend 2 feet. I dropped into a wider stance behind her. Bagel is 75 pounds and looks bigger when her shoulders are tense. I started walking backwards toward Anthony's building. I shouted, "Anthony!" The man with the rebar stepped toward me. He did not run. He stepped at the pace of a man who thought he had time. He was watching Bagel as much as he was watching me. Anthony came around the corner of the building. He was in his guard's uniform, two-way radio already in his hand. He had heard me. He saw the man with the rebar. He started shouting back into his radio while running toward us. The man saw Anthony coming. He looked at the path behind me, then at Anthony, then at me. He turned and ran toward Boylston Street. Anthony went after him. Boston PD had a cruiser 1 block away on the radio call. The cruiser caught up at the Boylston crossing. The suspect was tackled at the curb. 90 seconds from my first shout. In the police inventory afterwards, the rebar dropped at the hedge. 3 more pieces of rebar, bundled together with electrical tape, in a canvas tote, also at the hedge. A folding knife in his back pocket. An active warrant out of Worcester County for a prior assault charge. He was charged with aggravated assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, criminal threatening, Parks curfew violation. The Commons bylaws have an after-hours rule that pre-dawn loitering with intent satisfies, and the prior Worcester warrant. He was held without bond, convicted at trial 7 months later. 4 years state prison plus 3 years supervised release. The judge ordered restitution for my medical. I had sprained my ankle when I backed onto a wet section of grass during the retreat, plus the 5 weeks of work I had to take leave for. The thing the prosecutor walked me through during pretrial was the rebar count. The bundle of 3 additional pieces bound together with electrical tape, meaning the suspect had brought 4 pieces of rebar to the common that morning, 1 in his hand, 3 in the tote. The prosecutor said in her professional opinion the bundle was not for him. She said in cases like this, the number of weapons usually indicates the number of expected targets. She said carefully that she could not prove this was an organized predator, but the 4 rebar inventory was inconsistent with a single victim opportunistic crime. The prosecutor walked me through 1 piece of evidence, one that did not get entered at trial because of a chain of custody issue, but that she wanted me to know about. The canvas tote at the hedge had also contained a folded sheet of paper. On the paper, hand-printed in marker, was a list of times. Times in 24-hour notation, starting at 5:30 a.m., going through 9 a.m., in 15-minute intervals. Next to several of the times were small handwritten notes. 3 of them said dog walker, and 1 said 2 dogs at once. The prosecutor said the paper appeared to be a schedule the suspect had been keeping. She said it appeared to show observation of the loop at pre-dawn hours over an unknown period. She said she could not enter it because the canvas tote had not been bagged until after a second officer had moved it. She said it would not have changed the conviction, but she wanted me to know the observation had been longer than that one Tuesday morning. Honestly, I quit the WAG platform 6 weeks after. I take only referral clients now from my pre-existing client base. I do not walk dogs on the common anymore, even via private clients. I shifted my entire rotation to the Esplanade and the public garden side of Boylston, never overlapping with my old route. I carry a personal alarm pendant and a tactical folding pen. I had a friend at the precinct who recommended it. I was diagnosed with PTSD and therapy 3 months in. I dropped 2 clients in the first month back because I could not walk past hedges low enough to hide a man crouching, and both of their regular routes went directly past such hedges. I lost about 40% of my old income before referrals started filling the gap a year out. What I lose sleep over is that Bagel pulled toward the hedge. Bagel had felt it before I had. If I had been walking my second dog of the morning that day, a smaller, less alert poodle mix, I do not know if I would have noticed the man behind the hedge. Not before he stepped onto the path.
Saturday morning at 6 a.m., switchback 1 of a moderate trail in the Colorado Front Range. A man sitting on a fallen log 30 feet off the trail with no pack, no water, no jacket, just sitting. We nodded at each other. I kept walking. 20 minutes later, at the second switchback, the same man was already 80 feet ahead of me on the trail. I'll call myself Sloan, 28, software developer in Boulder. I had been hiking a moderate 7-mile out and back in the Colorado Front Range every other Saturday for almost 5 years. Solo. I knew the trail well enough to count the switchbacks. I'd grab a Subway breakfast sandwich at the Pearl Street Mall location on my way out of town, sole pre-hike habit I'd kept since college, and a King Soopers run for trail snacks the night before. My Subaru was always the only vehicle in the trailhead lot when I started at 8:45 a.m. The trail required a 20-minute drive on a Forest Service road. Most weekend hikers did not want to take it. Not for a moderate trail, when more famous trails were 15 minutes closer. The man on the fallen log at the first switchback was the first person I'd seen at that trail on a Saturday morning in 4 years. 9 times out of 10, I had the trail to myself for the first 3 miles. So a man sitting alone, no pack, no water bottle, no trekking poles, no jacket, just sitting on a log 30 feet off the trail, was unusual the first time I noticed. I'll try to be honest about what I felt because feelings on a trail can be wrong. Honestly, in 5 years of solo hiking, I had never gotten a feeling like that before. I nodded at him. He nodded back. He was mid-30s, beard, dark clothing, no day pack. I kept moving. To be fair, I told myself he was a hunter taking a break, or a forester scouting, or someone who had pulled off the trail for a private call. I hiked uphill. About 20 minutes later, I came around the second switchback, and there he was, 80 feet ahead of me on the trail, walking up. The geometry did not work. I had not heard footsteps behind me at any point. The trail in that stretch is rocky enough that a person walking up behind me at any speed would crunch gravel I would hear. He had not been walking up behind me, but he was now 80 feet ahead of me, which meant one of 2 things. Either he had taken a parallel route that intersected the main trail above me, or he had been waiting somewhere off trail and had stepped onto it ahead of me without me seeing him do it. I stopped walking. He stopped walking. He did not turn around. He held his distance. I want to be precise about this next part, because I have walked through it in my head many times. I did not call out. I did not announce myself. I turned around and started walking down the trail back toward the trailhead. A few seconds later, behind me, I heard him turn around too. When I glanced over my shoulder, he was 80 feet ahead of me in my new direction of travel. He had been letting me know that the distance he was holding was deliberate. There is a rock outcropping about half a mile before the second switchback, big enough to step behind. I had passed it on my way up. I picked up my pace as I went downhill, just enough to add some distance, and when I reached the rock, I stepped off the trail into the brush behind it and crouched down. I held my breath. He came down the trail 80 seconds later. He was walking briskly. He was looking left and right into the trees, scanning. He passed within 15 feet of where I was crouching. He did not see me. He kept going. I stayed folded behind that rock longer than was reasonable. I counted his footsteps on the gravel until they thinned out, and then I kept counting into the silence, because stopping the count felt like inviting the exact moment he would decide to come back and check the brush a second time. My thighs had gone past burning into a kind of numb I could not feel my feet through. What finally moved me was a bird. A scrub jay started up somewhere over the outcrop, loud and ordinary. Birds go silent when a person is standing still nearby. It was the jay, not my own nerve, that told me he was actually gone. I waited 5 minutes. I listened. Then I started back down the trail, by way of a less trafficked cutoff connector, one that diverges 200 yards before the main trailhead lot. The cutoff lets you out onto the park's road about 100 yards away from the actual trailhead. When I came down the cutoff and could see the lot, I stopped at the tree line. He was standing between my Subaru and the road. His right hand was inside his jacket. He was facing the trail mouth, the direction I would have come if I had not taken the cutoff. I walked along the tree line to the right of the parking lot, to where the sheriff's substation ranger station sits, 200 yards across the lot. I went in. I told the ranger. The ranger radioed dispatch. The sheriff's deputy who was nearest was a county vehicle 11 minutes away. The ranger asked me to stay inside the station. I watched through the window. The man stayed between my Subaru and the road. He looked at his watch twice. The deputy's vehicle came up the park's road from the wrong direction. Coming in from a Forest Service entrance, the suspect would not have expected. The suspect saw the cruiser only when it was 30 yards from him. He started walking fast toward the road. The deputy stepped out. Drew ordered him to the ground. The suspect did not comply. The suspect's right hand came out of his jacket holding a .38 revolver. The deputy disarmed before the suspect could discharge. In the suspect's jacket pocket, a pair of zip ties, brand new, factory bound together. His .38 revolver had been loaded with 6 rounds. A check of his fingerprints came back to a prior felony aggravated robbery conviction from 2019. He had been out of prison 3 years. He had a forklift job in Denver. He was banned from owning firearms. He was charged with felony attempted kidnap, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, criminal trespass on protected land, and felon in possession of a firearm. The state added the felon in possession as an enhancement at indictment. He was convicted by a jury 9 months later, 12 years state prison, 5 years supervised release after, permanent firearm prohibition. The FBI's Investigative Services Branch matched his pattern at 2 other Colorado trail systems within the prior 18 months, both unsolved attempts where the victim had escaped without identifying him. Both victims had described the same holding 80 feet ahead maneuver. The Bureau opened a VCAP intake on him and forwarded to the state's cold case unit. During discovery, the FBI's intake on the 2 prior unsolved cases came back with more detail. In both prior incidents, the victim had described the exact same 80-foot maneuver. In both cases, the suspect had been waiting at the trailhead lot near the victim's vehicle when the victim had returned by alternate route. Neither of the prior victims had been able to identify him to a sketch. Both prior cases, the victim had been wearing a hat. The only time they had seen his face clearly was at the distance maneuver. The Bureau's pattern analyst said this was a feedback-learned behavior on the suspect's part. He had refined the herding maneuver over multiple attempts. The trailhead lot ambush was the consistent endpoint. The Bureau also confirmed that all 3 trail systems he had used were on the same Forest Service road network, a 90-minute drive radius from his apartment in Denver. The prosecutor's office gave me copies of both prior victims' anonymized statements as a courtesy. Both ended with the same sentence in slightly different phrasing. I do not know what would have happened if I had gone back to my vehicle. I stopped solo hiking. I joined a club for group hikes only. I carry a Garmin InReach SOS satellite device, bear spray, and a personal alarm pendant. I sold my Subaru. It had been identifiable as a regular at that trailhead from the bumper sticker pattern on the back hatch. I paid out of pocket for trauma therapy for 8 months. The trailhead lot now has a sheriff-installed monitored camera at my testimony's recommendation. What I never figured out is the 80-foot distance. He had not been trying to walk me down. He had been trying to make me turn around. The whole maneuver was to herd me back to the trailhead lot, where my car was, where he had been waiting between the road and my vehicle the entire time. The trail had never been the trap. The trail had been the funnel. The last conversation I had with the prosecutor, she told me, gently, that the zip ties in his jacket were factory bound together, meaning he had brought them out unopened. He had not opened the package yet that morning. He had brought them out planning to open them later. The phrase she used was, "Not yet, but soon." She had been telling me, in the most careful way she could, that I had reached the ranger station. Before he had reached the opening of the package,